We're looking at unrest in schools. Janet Ouko has been with us, and we're talking about some of these issues, and we're asking her, so what exactly is going on? We see a number of schools being closed, and it's for fear that, some more fires could take place. But we're saying, okay, let's keep people safe, send them home, early midterm kind of thing, and let's diffuse the situation. Well, let's see. Dr. Hamida Ahmed, who is a clinical psychologist and former teacher, also joins us in the hot seat of the situation. Good morning, Dr.
Morning to you. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you for being here with us this morning. We'll give you the opportunity of giving your opinion about today's proverb, interpreting that. Dennis will tell you where that's from.
Yes, we are in Guinea, capital Conakry. Bauxite is their greatest resource. They mine that which is used to make aluminium. Americans call it aluminum. I don't know why. But let's go to the proverb. Right. The axe forgets, but the tree remembers. How would you interpret it?
I think the person who wears the shoes doesn't forget. Yeah, because they're in it. The tree, is rooted down. So it's there to stay. But the actions being done to it, the people are doing those actions, are doing them and then moving on with their lives. But the tree remains with the scars. Yeah, that's how I see it.
Well
Indeed.
put.
All right. We're looking at the psychology of a teen, and we're playing this against what's happening in schools right now, because that is the age group that we're looking at that seems to have a particular issue. And so children anywhere between the age of 12 and 19 right now in schools, grade 10, and this is high school, grade 10, form 3, form 4. What's happening in the mind of a child at this age that we can now play against the backdrop of what's happening in schools?
One thing that we have to appreciate is that our teenagers are going through a lot. This is a developmental stage where they are transitioning from big kids to adulthood. There's a lot that is going on, physically. Their bodies are changing, the hormones and issues like self-image, they're dealing with that. They're also at this stage where they want to be independent, where they're asking themselves, who am I? They're detaching from the parents. They don't want to just accept what the parents are saying. They want to be able to reason for themselves. And this is a very normal, this is very normal at that developmental stage. So a lot is going on physically, mentally. So this is a stage that we have to handle very carefully, whether we are parents or teachers. We cannot run away from the fact that there's a lot that they're dealing with at this developmental stage, and including their brains. We need to acknowledge that the brain at this age is not fully developed.
Okay.
Yeah. So the brain actually fully matures at the age of 25. There's also new research that is talking about, just the neurons being completely, connected at the age of early 30s. So we are talking about a 12-year-old to a 19-year-old. So the way they reason is quite impulsive. They're thinking about now. They're not thinking about the big picture.
Okay.
About, if I do this now, what is going to happen? What is the long-term effect of my behavior?
Okay, I want to jump in and ask the question about posing a clear danger to others. Janet brought it up in the last hour. We cannot run away from that reality, especially we're looking at when somebody struck the match, Dr. Somebody knew that if you strike the match and that there's a fire burning and that there are people sleeping, that they will be injured and or die. Whether the brain molecules have come together or not, whether you have not fully developed, that if you invite this danger, somebody will die. Janet called it criminal aspects.
Right.
So that what you're doing is wrong. Yeah. Molecules formed or not. So are there some bad eggs that need neurons? Right. Are there some bad eggs that need to be dealt with by the long arm of the law, regardless of whether the developmental stages have taken place or not? And those ones we're not having a conversation with about, do you want eggs and sausages in high school? It's not a conversation about that. You've done something evil.
Right.
Are we having that kind of conversation? Should we be?
100%.
Okay.
We need to be able to teach our children that when you choose a behavior, you automatically choose the consequence. Yeah. And the issue of empathy, that's what I'm seeing, lacking in our society, not just with our children. We are very self-driven, as opposed to thinking about when I do this, what happens. So the children have to know that, yes, they're talking about their rights, but what about their responsibilities? Because when we have rights, we have also to have conversations about responsibilities, because, when somebody else gets hurt, when property gets destroyed, then we are having a different conversation. We are talking about a crime at this point, whether it is a child or an adult, something bad has happened. So we have to hold them accountable. 100%.
So when somebody is arrested or that there is recourse for action,
right,
does it take away from that message that they are trying to pass? Because note, the schools that have gone up in flames since Utumishi have had no human injury.
Right.
Are they sending a message, and does it change? Does it? Because there's been no human injury?
They're sending a message. That's okay, but the how is what makes the difference.
I think there was one school that got up in the middle of the night and went for a walk to protest.
Yes.
They didn't burn anything, but the school was closed the next day because they said, let's just take a walk to let you know that we're not okay.
Yeah, at this stage, how they reason is that, they're not listening to me. They're not listening to us. So let's do something to force them to listen to us.
Okay.
But at the same time, up to what extent? Because the minute that you ban a school, then we are not even talking about the Githeri that had weevils. That conversation is gone. Now we are talking about a school property that was banned, a school property which will force your parents to pay for.
Janet, let me bring you in, right? So, children are speaking. The issues that are there have been there for a very long time. And I dare say, these are not issues that we've started seeing today in this class. These are issues that have been there for a very long time and have been ignored, because for a very long time students have been there to be seen, not to be heard. Does that then force them to do the things that we see them do today, because they do not have anybody to talk to, and even when they talk, they are not being heard?
So, and I think before I answer that question, we need to correct a perception that is ongoing here, that being a child predisposes you to criminal activities. No, it does not. Because you're a child, because you're not an adult. So when you're a child, you must be a law-abiding child. So when you're not law-abiding, we call you a child in conflict with the law. And children in conflict with the law, there is how they're dealt with. The law is very clear about, and I think I see some alignment from all what the psychologists are talking about in terms of when you're a child, you're not fully developed, you're not mature, so that even before the law has not started considering you as a person who can contemplate, or can understand the consequences of criminal activities and so on and so forth. But there are limits to it, because in Kenya, for example, when you're above 12, between 12 and 17 years, you can be processed in the criminal justice system, only that you will be processed in the criminal justice system for children. But it does not exempt you. I think that needs to come out very clearly, so that children are not thinking that they are insulated. They are insulated from punishment just because they are children. No, they are not. They will actually face justice, just like anybody else. And now back to your question is about what I had explained earlier, that we need to interrogate ourselves. Are we bottling up children? Are we bottling up children, and when they burst, now is when we react? And that's what I called gaslighting. That we do not listen to you, we do not care so much about your feelings, we do not care so much that the stage at which you are in, I have seen people calling children very bad things, that they're entitled brats and so on and so forth. And I think honestly, we are the mothers of these children. If you told me to tell you who my child is, I will tell you who my child is based on the interactions that I have had with that child. But we also must agree that when that child goes to school,
away from you,
away from me, because of what Madam has explained here, that they are not fully developed, they are more susceptible to peer pressure than anybody else. You know, you can actually be able to take a stand as an adult and say, no, I will not do that. But you know, the ability of our children to do that is compromised by the developmental stages that they are at. So we need to have these conversations from also an empathetic point of view. And even probably sometimes I tell my children, even I was an adolescent at some day, and there are one or two things that I did that I'm not proud of today. So the things that I did that time, probably if it was this dispensation where there's a lot of access to so much, and even the crimes that we were doing during our time, we were stealing sugar. Those are the things that we did. We were stealing sugar, and it was really severe, to steal sugar. But right now, they cannot steal sugar. Sugar is readily available in our house. I mean, nobody even bothers really about. It's not a big deal. So they have now moved to other things. So we need to also, and that's why we think a lot of the problems that we see in education, we also still narrow back to funding and financing. Where is the guidance and counseling and the psychological and the psychosocial support in our schools? Somebody who can be able to even explain to parents when they come for parents' days. But what do we do in parents' day meetings? Instead of taking that opportunity to bridge these gaps between our parents and our children, we ask more about money. It's about money, it's about money, it's about money, it's money this and money that. But because that is the opportunity that we have, that we can be able to address all our children together and their parents seated down. So there's quite a lot that, and I think that this is not a bad problem that we are having. There's opportunity. If we can use this situation in the right direction, in the right way, we can stop, all of us, and wonder, how exactly do we want to ensure that we never get ourselves discussing this? Because remember, we had Bombolulu, we had, and a list of them. And we must come to a situation and now say, how exactly do we want to do things differently? But we cannot do things the same way and expect different results. We will still go back to it. What have children done? We still go to take them back to that congested dorms. We still go back to that constricted space. Because remember, I think I remember it was still this situation of school fires that led us to change prefects. The Nyeri High situation led us from changing from prefects to school presidents that are democratically elected. And so on. It served us for some time. So now to like we're having a new challenge that has to sit us down together and wonder, now how do we deal with this? What other strategy do we want to employ? And we implement changes as we go by. But we cannot remain with the policies of 2010 and still think that they will serve us in 2025, 15 years or 20 years down the line. I think we are running late of thing. And the only thing that we are doing is when something happens, now we sit down and apportion blame. You were supposed to have done this, but you did not do it. You were supposed to have done this, but you did not do it. And a lot of the blame now is going to the children. And I'm just sitting here and wondering, really, what have the children done? The children find they have touched the dome. It is really bad. It is really bad. And every child should face the consequences. But do we bother for things to get there? Don't we have channels? Even within the children themselves. Nobody could leak. Nobody could talk to their parents. But no, because why? We have locked our children in school and nobody has a phone that they can tell their mother, Mama, there is this that is happening in the school. We really have to. We have to do things differently. Yeah. We have to do things differently that no child could have communicated to their parent. We don't think it's a problem at this age of communication, of this age that information instantly is going out. Don't we think that there is a problem there?
Dr. Ahmed, when we talk about then, because here we are, so 100 and so odd schools have closed. There are many schools that are having the conversation right now about closing early for the midterms. So let's do exams quickly this week and let's diffuse the situation. Everybody goes home, calms down. But are we going to solve the problem? If there's this thing, if this is frustration in a teen's mind, in a student's mind right now, and you take them out of that situation for 2 weeks and bring them back to the same situation, unless some radical thing happens in 2 weeks, are we solving the problem?
Absolutely not, because we are not dealing with the real issues. What is the root cause of that kind of behavior? Why are they making such choices? Why do they feel that they have to go to such extreme extent to be able to communicate so that they can be heard? Now you can see the reaction. We are reacting because now we want to close the schools very early, and that's what, to them, they have achieved whatever they were looking for. They don't want to be in that environment, and they want to go back home where they are feeling way much more relieved and maybe listened to and all that. But by the end of the day, we have not dealt with the situation. I feel like this gives us an opportunity to have real conversations. Are they coming back to school after midterm as usual? Or is there something different that we are planning to do? What are the schools intending to do? Simply because the kids have been away for a few days doesn't mean that the issues have been resolved.
What would be different to do that would now make the situation better?
We need to talk.
Okay.
We need to have conversations because unfortunately some of the schools, are still using the authoritarian, style of dealing with our kids. So I've had even parents talk about, going to some of those schools and being treated like kids by the administration. So if some of those schools don't even listen to the parents and they treat them as if they have no power, what about the kids? How are they being treated? So some of the things that they need to do is go back to schools and start with a conversation. Because something else that I think I want to mention is that, we focus so much on punishment, which should not be the issue. We need to focus on discipline. Those are two very different things.
Well, people think that corporal punishment is discipline. And I've been of the opinion that my problem with corporal punishment is that you then are not able to put in controls, whereby how do you control when one individual is so angry for whatever reason? Because people can discipline and they have their own issues from here till kingdom come, and they're taking them out on this child.
Yes.
But we have often interchanged corporal punishment or punishment with discipline. What's the difference?
Those are two different approaches. When you're talking about punishment, we want to instill pain so that the person can fear repeating the same behavior. But when we are talking about discipline simply means teach. Because in the long term, we want to teach these children to be able to make decisions, good decisions, whether we are there or not. When we are talking about punishment, because we are instilling fear, we are instilling pain. So even in our society, you can see that. It's like, as long as I've not been caught, I'm good. Not because when you're talking about punishment, this is coming from external people. But when we are talking about discipline, it is up to me to think about what I have been taught and what is the right decision. So whether I'm alone, whether I'm in a group of people where there's peer pressure, I get to make the right choice because I have learned.
Janet, when you talk about an outlet, in schools today, there is no psychiatric help, professional. During my time, it was a CRE teacher who was a guidance and counseling.
Or a librarian.
Or a librarian, who was a guidance and counseling teacher at that point. But here now we're getting to a point where children want to be heard. Children want to be part and parcel of the decisions that make their lives better. Yet, if you look at many, and what they say is, Mimi, during my time, nilichapo kiboko, but look at how I turned. Look at me today. We went through that period, nilichapo, but here I am a CEO somewhere. Okay, fine, that was during your time. But this is a point where conversations and dialogue ought to be encouraged. So one asks the question then, should we move towards that direction?
To which direction?
Not corporal. No, not corporal. Should we go towards a direction where we say there is a problem in these schools, students are raising something, because if you send them to go home because they wanted to be home anyway. They wanted to be home because perhaps that's where they find there is peace. Should we then have conversations around There is a problem. Let's sit. Let's find a solution together, not as teachers directing you on what you need to do.
You know, there's a gap that happened and we cannot go back to a conversation about corporal punishment. Globally, it is known to produce very bad results. And some of the tendencies that you're seeing in school now, because corporal punishment, especially when done in home or in school, it destroys trust between you and the child. And so they're not able even to approach you. They treat you as someone who is not approachable. And those are some of the consequences that we are seeing at current. And it produces fear. It can produce fear. It can also produce aggression.
Okay.
You know, so those are very undesirable products of corporal punishment, and internationally and even legally, we cannot go that direction. But when we outlawed corporal punishment in situations like home and in school, for home, we did not need to be guided as to the protocols, because at home I'll deal with you and deal properly. But now at school, the protocols were not very well developed as to what now replaces the corporal punishment. And when the protocols are developed, they're probably just developed on paper as policy, but schools were not supported to implement those protocols, like for guidance and counseling. No one thinks, and the evidence that we have is that even including the capitation budget lines that we are having, there is no single shilling that goes towards that regard of supporting discipline or counseling in schools. So, like you're saying, the CRE teacher used to be that time. Even now, the situation is not any different from school. And now, even the burden for teaching has probably even grown. So that guidance and counseling, we really cannot talk about it as developed, you know. And considering that avenue of corporal punishment is closed up completely, and that is why you see people on social media saying, try and touch one, and then there are these parents who will be flashing car keys and coming and asking, and it is legitimate. Like, I mean, you cannot subject a child to illegal treatment or treatment that has been outlawed, you know, by the law. Because as Ndu said, you do not know the extent to which an irrational person can go with corporal punishment. And clearly, we have lost children. There are children who have died in the hands of people attempting to perform some discipline or something like that. So corporal punishment is closed. But in the closure of it, we owe ourselves a new protocol. How do we then reinforce discipline? How do we correct children? How do we ensure that advising them sufficient? Because sitting under a tree with a child and just talking to them about, do not get me wrong, some Bible verses, are we equating discipline to religion at some point? Because I have a very strong feeling that is the direction that a lot of the correction would go towards, you know, and it is not so. So we actually need experts in schools to be able to talk to children about discipline. It is not everything that can be sorted by religion. That reading a child one or two Bible verses, you want to imagine that you have built in a software in them that will support them to behave positively towards a way. It is honestly not working. And I have said this about the conversation about lesbianism and gayism in our schools, because that's also another button that parents and teachers don't want to touch. The government does not want to touch, but it is happening. In any case, there are some cases you've had the issue being very highly, profiled. We do not know whether it is a truth or we do not know what it is. But the fact that it has been mentioned very, prominently, it gives us the latitude to address it. And here it is the issue. Heads of schools do not know what to do with those situations.
With the lesbianism and homosexuality issues in schools, because they do exist.
The issues exist, they are there, but heads of schools do not know how to deal with it. About 4 years ago thereabout, the heads of schools were very hard on those children. They used to suspend them. They used to expel them.
They beat them today.
And then here comes a conversation.
Yeah.
That someone that a child is in discipline, because that is also part of being in discipline, does not deny them their right to education. It doesn't deny them their right to education. They must exist in an education institution. So which education institution is that? And how do we as society either support those children to how have we defined what do we want? What do we want out of them? The desire of many parents is that we would not want them to go that direction. That's the desire of many parents. So how are parents supported? Because when you suspend that child, this is what happens. They go home. The mother does not know why you have been suspended. They don't know how to assist you. They don't know. They do not even want their preacher to know that is why you were suspended from school. No school wants to touch you, because in this country there's a protocol that for you to transfer from school A to B, you must have a release letter from the school that you came from. So no school will touch you, because you will, they're saying you will come and it's like a contagious disease.
Yeah.
You want to come and infect our whole school with. So there's the lack of guidance, and the little guidance that the ministry has tried to perform is going towards religion.
Well, since we decided to open that door, let's go. Because it is an issue, and it is guiding the mental thought of quite a number, whether they're involved or not. That we know, and I have sat with people in just the last week who've talked about the fact that they're boys in school who are being raped by other boys in school, and have talked about it, and then, according to them, have no choice but to become homosexual. Okay? There are girls in school who demand of relationships of other girls in school. So because we already have this sit in the corner over there conversation and relationship with discussing sexual issues, even as grown-ups, we don't want to talk about it. It becomes very difficult when a child comes and tells you, oh, mom, well, this is the thing. And you're like, okay, so can I hide under the table first of all before we discuss? How much more a school where discipline issues rule the roost? So the boy who is going through this situation, Daktari, is told, man up, okay? Man up. These are things that happen not just within the school premises, but when they go for the things that are extracurricular, sports and things like that, and they're told, yeah, that's chicken change. That happens all the time. Just roll with it. It'll soon finish and then you will go. So we're introducing boys who've been abused for 4 years in high school into society, and then we're asking questions about just beat them and then they'll be fine. I mean, come on, beat it out of them. That's what we're doing. This has come up because we're asking, let's deal with the issues. This has come up as to one of the reasons why this indiscipline or this acting out is happening currently with the burning down. It is being given as one of the reasons. How do you even begin to deal with it? How? Where do you start from?
Yeah, I think as I'm still going to talk about communication. We cannot hide from the fact that these conversations about homosexuality are coming up in schools. If it is really happening in schools, then we need to...
It's happening, Dr.
Yes, yes, it is. Yes, I'm saying if it's really happening, then we really need to have those conversations. And the issue of, sexual activities, that cannot be a good thing in a school. Because my sexuality is one thing, but me extending that and having maybe sexual activities with other students, then that becomes a problem. When you talk about young boys being forced to have sex with older kids, that's rape.
It is.
So it's like, what are the schools doing about that? We need to, I think, take this very, very seriously, because we have to remember that when people go through such experiences, some of them end up being very traumatized. Yeah, and also one of the things that that happens is that when people are sexually abused, some of them then go ahead to the society after school to abuse other kids or other people. Hurt people, hurt others. So it just doesn't stop there. When you talk to people who are homosexual, they'll tell you that most of it started from school. This is what was going on in school, and then I was inclined to continue. Yeah, so we need to have these conversations, and it's not just in our boarding schools that this is happening. Even I was in an international school as a school counselor, and these conversations were nothing. Nothing to shock you. we would have those conversations about sexuality. A student would come and this and that. I like girls. I'm a girl. I like girls. And we would have the conversations because they're not having sex in school. Yeah, but they're trying to explore who they are, what their sexuality is. But if we start, shutting them down, then they end up making choices based on their thinking
you
capacity.
need to look to your left,
yes,
right, and see the cringe on Janet's face.
Yeah.
She's wondering.
No, I mean, that's what I'm saying this because there is much more openness. In those schools. It doesn't mean that homosexuality is not in those schools, but it's not the issue. They are not burning down the schools. How come the international schools are not burning the schools? And we do have international schools that are boarding.
Do you know what happens to children in schools today who are suspected to be or confirmed to be homosexual in boarding schools today? Do you know?
Expelled.
They're expelled.
Yeah, they're expelled.
Or they're beaten thoroughly in school or prayed for. Exorcism takes place. I don't know. This happens. That's the situation. It is set. Look, that if we are saying that in this room that we are going to have open conversations about the things that are happening, then we might as well. Because even in this Utimishi school that burnt down, what were the undertones that we were already hearing? That this group of girls were the ones who then, at some point, were being ostracized or being dealt in a certain way that they didn't appreciate because of the sexual orientation that they had chosen. You might think it's cringe. You might say, yikes, what are we getting into? But are these the undertones that we're hearing? Look, we cannot say that those are the only, because it's not. Other things have come up. Even other things have come up as to reasons why, but this is one of the things that we would wish that you take this thing, put it in a can, seal the lid, throw it into the sea. We don't want to talk about it, but it happens. But there are boys who are being raped, like you said, in school today, and nobody is listening to them when they go to the teacher, the guidance and counseling stroke PE teacher stroke librarian stroke nurse, who has 100 other things to deal with. She doesn't know what happened to you in the confines of the dorm yesterday.
And you see, what that means then, Janet, is that you are in this school where homosexuality is happening. Because I'm going to give you a story. I know of an individual who committed suicide because of the same. And when that happened, the parents buried the child. They found out about it a little bit later. The school knew what was happening, but business continued as normal. And the homosexuality in that institution still continued. And the children had a problem with that there is a problem. The institution knows there is a problem. The leadership knows there is a problem. They are not addressing it. We continue to go through this process. If we close ourselves in this room that you're not talking about these issues, what are we doing to our children and their psyche?
No, it's a really sad spot that we find ourselves in. And I know that parents of my type want to never have this conversation at all. But I am sorry, it has to happen. Because if we want to help our children, we have to come to a place and really be as open as we can to help our children, understand them and support them. If we do not, now we will be dealing with different things. You wish you listened to your child, because if you do not do, you might want to listen to them when they are you're separated by a grill, like it is happening right now. And I want to pick from what she said, that she, from an international school, for example, there was a resource. The same same that we are talking about, that because our public schools are starved of resources, we do not have a facility of an experienced or an expert who knows the place of being easy with children, who does not listen to a child talking about their sexual orientation, and then they're enraged or they're shocked or something like that, But we do not have those kinds of facilities. So I want to go to the very much rudimental question and ask ourselves, what did we think when we made every school girls and every other school boys? Because that is what we have done in this country. We have put all boys together and all girls together.
We don't have any mixed boarding schools.
They're very rare. Few and far between.
Okay.
And those that are there are day schools. But I can bet you most of our boarding schools are either girls' schools or boys' schools. And when we went to school, everyone got truant at some point, you know. There's adolescence happening. All of us will not respond to adolescence in the same way. There are those who really suffered adolescence more than us, even when we went to school. There are girls who would sneak out, and you'd look at them and wonder, wow. I mean,
what do you do, boo?
What is it? There are those who would. There are those who would. It doesn't mean that they're badly brought up. No, it's just that different people react differently to different situations and to different stages of life. So I always want to ask myself, when children in a mixed school, you will find two children, a boy and a girl have impregnated each other.
Yes, the boy has impregnated the girl.
Yes, the boy, they have impregnated each other parents, to the fact. Their parents together. In a girl situation, if this girl was in a girl's school, you know, the tendencies and what she's feeling would get her in a girl's school. How would she respond to it? So that a lot of these children are being labeled lesbians, not because they actually are, but because they are in a situation where there are only girls here, or there are only boys here. So there is a conversation that we honestly must have in this country. And the conversation about boarding schools is a conversation that we must have. Aren't we the people who had a conversation in this country that we want to reduce the age of consent for having sex to 16 years?
Yes.
Why were we doing that? Our argument was, our children of nowadays are growing too fast.
And they can make a decision about whom they love.
So at 16, if you're saying that child, we should reduce the age of consent from 18 to 16, can you know that in your mind, you're also dealing with that particular person who you called a big person at 16 is in a school facility. So we at one point we want to accept that at 16 these children have started doing a few things. We want to admit on one end, but when we lock them up in a
one
situation
gender.
and in one gender and call them a boarding school, we now want to pretend that we are blind and deaf, that these children have not started knowing a few things, and we want to beat them out of it. It is not okay. It is not going to work. It isn't going to work.
Boy. We go back to the thing that Dr. Ahmed said, but you need to start to have the conversations, isn't it? Start talking about these things because they are the reality. If you decide that that's not the orientation, then that's the conversation that you need to have had. But we more often than not, are not having the conversation. Far be it from us to remove this to leave this as a sole cause as to why things are happening. But a lot of minds, whether it is at the helm of the ministry in government, whether it is by parents in certain sectors, whether it is by PTAs, believe that there's a criminal aspect in children that has led to what we have seen, and that needs to be rooted out. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, they have done a criminal act, and there is a very high possibility as they were starting this, or when they were making these choices, they did not foresee, how much damage or how serious their behaviors were going to have an impact. So, yes, they are going to face the law.
Okay.
But at the same time...
And that's the solution to that.
Criminality,
you face the law.
Yeah, you have to face the law.
Yeah.
But also, we also talk about supporting them, because there are so many things that so many choices that we made as young people that when we look back, we cringe at that. So we also need to give them an opportunity, even as they are dealing with the law. We need to support them so that they become better human beings. Yeah, it's about rehabilitation. It's not about just punishment, but we also need to think about rehabilitation, especially when it comes to young kids, because some of these kids end up, turning out, amazing people as they grow, as adults. So we cannot, they need to face the full force of the law, but we also need to understand that everybody has an opportunity to change.
Now, this is a crazy question, I guess, for both of you. And we may not want to admit it, but you see this burning, it got somebody's attention.
Yeah.
somebody is reacting because somebody has gone to an extreme.
Yeah.
And said, okay, but now do we realize that it is now emblazoned, use a fiery term, in the minds of people that, you know what, if we go to the extreme, somebody is bound to listen. Somebody is then going to allow us to go home. Somebody now in a media station somewhere will start having a conversation about how we need to be listened to. Do you see? But it took us going to the extreme to now force that conversation. Sounds crazy, but it's the reality.
Yeah.
How do we deal with that?
But that's how we do everything. We wait for a building to collapse. It kills people. That's when we will be inspecting the integrity of every building in this town, and you know, that's how we work. And now saying that right now the concern now has shifted to how is the security and safety of our schools and so on and so forth. And as I had said, still you will not see government going to public schools to investigate. So you're likely now to see a purge on private institutions. They will criminalize private sector players and tell them the same standards that have not been kept in public schools. So I also wonder sometimes that, do we think that children do not live in this country like we do? Do we think that children do not have the frustrations that parents are having? Do you think that they don't see what we are seeing? They're not feeling with us the pinches? You know, they are. So it's not fair to just say that we are having a different lot. This lot of children is no. Even us, the way we are treating this government is not the way our parents treated the previous governments. So are our parents pointing at us and telling us, you guys are wrong, you guys no? They're appreciating that, you know, democracy is growing, and we cannot want to enjoy the fruits of democracy ourselves, but demand that we are going to can our children, and we are the ones who will be opening for them space. Talk now, and you only talk between now and here, and you can only say this to this. You know, we actually cannot be able to do this. And unfortunately, that is what is happening to our children, including speeches that children want to make are first looked at. You know, the teachers have to go through to just make sure I remove this line and remove this one and craft it, you know, this way. So we really have to think thoroughly about how we have embraced democracy ourselves, and how these children, we also want to not bottle them up, you know, like completely. Just give them opportunities for expressing themselves. And as adults, we have to change our frameworks of mind. Can we accept criticism? Can we accept to be told by children that we think that this ought to have gone this way? Can we accept to sit down and say, it did not go that way because of A, B, C, and D? Can we stop assuming that the child of 1990 or who was 13 years is the same child of technology in 2025? Right. That's an adult in terms of, you know, their minds and how they're looking at things. So there's quite a lot that we need to do, and I want to say that for the Ministry of Education, you owe this country a platform. You owe this country a platform, even if it's going to be a task force. Can we have experts put together and discuss this question completely? It is not about school fires, but even on the school fires manual, do you not think that we need to include safety of children in light of the lesbianism and gayism issues that are taking place? It is not just about hardware, that there are grills on the door must open from inside out. How about the safety of boys who are being, defiled by their fellow students? How about their safety? So that now we also need to look at it from a software issue. It's not just about safety of schools in terms of doors and windows and fire extinguishers, but these are now contemporary issues that are affecting the safety and security of children when they are in school institutions. That is the responsibility of the Ministry of Education.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dr. We are reacting to what has happened, yet these conversations have been there. We've dismissed them for a very long time. It's about time we went into preventing the same, and with that then would be making guidance and counseling and opportunities for children to be heard, to be part and parcel of the curriculum, part and parcel of the process of being in school. Because now we will see guidance and counseling opportunities going to these schools because they've seen fires are coming. After midterm break, we will see a lot of you being invited opportunity to schools to have these conversations. But from a policy perspective then, with what Judge Janet is proposing, should we then move forward to ensure that each and every school, perhaps across the country, has an outlet mechanism, gives students an opportunity to be heard, to be listened to, and issues to be sorted? Because we can't say, we want you to pass an engineering course, but we've not given you textbook. That child is frustrated. We can't say, we want you to be a doctor, but 50 of you who are doing that course are sharing a textbook, whereas the 50th child, you'll receive it in term 3. It does not make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like we focus so much on the academics and the performance, and we ignore the students' welfare. The policy needs to change. We need to see counselors in all our schools, whether
trained.
Yes,
professional counselors.
You have to be licensed to practice nowadays.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is an amazing thing. You have to go through school. You have to, and we have different levels of professionals. We have people with certificates, diplomas, bachelors, doctorate, and all. If you cannot afford somebody like me, we have people with certificates who are trained, who can be in a school setup, and their only focus is the students' welfare. They don't go to class to teach, and if they go to class to teach, they're teaching the soft skills. They're teaching emotional intelligence. They're teaching emotional regulation. They're teaching all those things as opposed to math. These kids actually, and also the policy, I feel, we really need to allow students to be. When it is time for PE, for example, I do not want to hear that there's a math teacher going to that
on the time.
classroom.
Must finish syllabus, buana.
Yes, I mean, it's not about the syllabus. Because, I mean, the world has changed. It's no longer about the IQ, but the EQ that helps us survive and make it. So we have to stop that old mentality of just the grades, whether it is the parents or the teachers. So the policy needs to focus on student welfare. Conversations need to be had. We need to have bodies of students where they address students' issues. There needs to be forums where students can openly have conversations. We need to have professionals, counselors in all the schools, whether it is primary or high school, whether they're day school or boarding, because some of them, it's not just about school issues. Some of them have serious issues that they're dealing with coming from home. So I completely agree. And that's what we have been discussing as psychologists, as counselors, that we need schools to have counselors, professionals within the compound.
And the return of proper midterm breaks. Do you know nowadays?
It's 3 days, Friday, Saturday, come back on Monday.
Can you believe that?
Yeah.
So why is it so? What is this about content? What about letting a child rest even for a week? I mean, so some of these things that the ministry is glossing over are really very important to those children. Resting out, and even according parents an opportunity to even stay with the children. Because usually when they come back for 2-3 days, and probably you have a work schedule here and there, you do not get good time to know the child, to interact with the child. So what happened to having a break for a whole 1 week? What is this that they have to learn so badly that people in other countries are not learning? Children are going to school from 8 to 3 p.m. and they go home. What is this Kenyans are reading?
Yeah. And like in the international schools, during the midterm, that's where they actually plan trips because it's like 9 days. You plan a trip, you go, unwind and come back. And also, as I finish, I think we need to take the issue of co-curriculum activities very seriously, so that the kids have an opportunity to grow their talents and also release all that pent-up energy. We need to take that very seriously. Some of them are gifted in those areas.
Absolutely.
So we need to balance it out.
I think, as we wind on, I think the most important question that parents and teachers should ask themselves is, do I know my child? Do you know your student?
This is heavy. It's a lot of stuff to go through, but it actually is the national conversation at the moment, and should actually, because you're talking about pillars of society, foundations of society is what we're doing through education. There's a reason why it gets a good chunk of the budget. It would be great if it actually went on time. But these are the things that we talk about, and that it is time where we have those uncomfortable conversations. The thing that nobody really wants to talk about, we talk about it. The thing that we want to gloss over, no, we say we're going to sit here until it's figured out. Because one death in school
One too many.
is one too many. Janet Ouko is the Executive Director of the Students on Total Coalition. Dr. Hamidi Ahmed, a counseling psychologist and former teacher, here with us this morning to have this conversation. We'll keep talking, guys, until we turn this thing. Good morning, everybody.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.